They will literally pick you up in a limousine at home or at your hotel and drive you to a separate entrance of the airport where you go to a separate lounge that is just for first class passengers of that airline. It is Sunday, May 19th, 2024, and on this week's edition of Sunday Sofa Time, we're talking about the differences between business class travel and first class travel. Happy Sunday, everyone. There's a lot of things I want to talk about in this video, in addition to my list of things that are different between business class and first class travel. But if you're only here for that, skip to this point in the video. That's where I start with my lists. And the first thing I have to show you is, in researching for this video, I read a lot of articles and watched a lot of videos, and I found this article from Condé Nast Travel. Look at the headline. Do you notice anything? And this has been online since January. How has this gone not detected for so long? Do you see it? Maybe I should make a video about those differences too. I'm Morgan from the very unofficial travel guides. I've been making travel videos for over 15 years of popular and not so popular tourist destinations to give you a very honest, unofficial look at what it's like to be there. And I recently flew international business class, or some would consider it first class, for the first time, and I thought it was very posh, but also very outside of my usual travel budget. In the video I made about my experience in Delta One International, I referred to it a few times as first class, and some people really let me have it in the comments. I was not aware that there is a group of people out there who I guess you would consider airline status snobs. I mean, I guess you could call them airline status aficionados, but the way they came at me in the comments, I would consider it snobby. Of course, not everybody, but there are some people who apparently have a lot more experience than I do flying in the upper classes, who corrected me in the comments, who also read through all the comments to correct anybody else in the comments, and who seem to take joy in just showing that they know so much more about this than others. You know who you are. All right, when airline travel first became a thing for the masses, the conditions were much different than they are now. In the beginning, the Civil Aeronautics Board actually required all seats in an airplane to cost the same. So it was kind of like traveling in a bus. Everybody paid the same price and all the seats were the same. It wasn't until 1955 that TWA, rest in peace. Did you ever fly with TWA? So according to the research that I did, TWA was one of the first airlines, or maybe the first airline, to divide the cabin into two different cabins and calling the one cabin first class and the other cabin coach class. And since the 1950s, airline travel has morphed over and over into what it currently is today, which is confusing. Like I said, I've read so many articles now about this subject and watched a lot of people's videos about this subject, and it seems to me that there is no real, definite difference. You can't really say, if you book first class, it's always gonna be like this. The differences in services and amenities vary so greatly, and it depends on not only what airline you're flying, but even within an airline, which airport you're leaving from, which airport you are flying to, and which airplane in their fleet you will be on. I'm getting to my list really soon here, but just to show you how confusing and how different this is, I just want to read you one small part of the description of what first class airline travel is from Wikipedia, or Wikipedia. Okay, so just to show you how different and confusing this can be, it says, domestic first class does have two very different meanings on certain transcontinental routes between New York City and California. Delta, American, United, and JetBlue operate a special service on flights between JFK and San Francisco International Airport or Los Angeles Airport, known as Delta Transcontinental Service, American Flagship Service, United PS, and Mint, respectively, with Delta and United using specially configured Boeing 757-200s and American and JetBlue using Airbus 321s. In case of American Airlines, first class is actually a three-cabin first class, which is different from two-cabin first class, both in comfort and price, such as lie-flat seats in first class, for example. In these cases, domestic business class is generally slightly higher than a two-cabin domestic first class ticket. The three-cabin first class is more of a truly first class rather than a rebranded business class. On JetBlue, however, first class is only offered on transcontinental flights consisting of mini suites or lie-flat seats. So, want to try to sum that up for me? It's confusing, isn't it? And I personally don't feel bad that I called Delta One first class, because How do you know? Like I mentioned in the comments, I think a lot of people out there think if you're walking into the plane and making that left turn,
you in first class, baby.
But that's not exactly true. And now I'll go through the list of things that I did find that you will almost always get in business and first class, and then the things that are only in a true first class experience. The things that you will find in both business and first class, usually, with exceptions, start on the ground, and they are priority check-in, meaning there is a separate line for you to give your bags to the airline and get your boarding passes if you haven't done it online already. And speaking of bags, extra baggage is almost always included. Many airports also offer an extra security line so you can get through the security check quicker, and most of the time when you are booking business class or first class, you will have access to some kind of upgraded lounge that is separate from the normal part of the airport. If you watched my video about traveling in Delta One International, you'll see that the lounge experience for me was one of the most disappointing parts of the whole thing. But like I said, that totally depends on what airport you are going to the lounge in. To me, screaming kids climbing over seats, paper plates, and plastic forks does not feel like first class, but maybe I'm too picky. When it's time to board the plane, you will also get priority boarding, usually in business class and first class. You will also gain more miles and status points over an economy or coach class ticket, but of course the price is going to be higher. And once you enter the plane, of course, depending on the plane and the route that you will be flying, you may be able to make that fabulous left turn, or actually for you, it's left turn. By the way, nowadays, first class and business class is always at the front of the plane, but in my research, I learned that in the olden days, it was usually at the back of the plane because the back of the plane in propeller planes was quieter and smoother. Facts on the very unofficial travel guides.
Well, actually, that is not true, Morgan, because there were plane models where...
This is one thing that varies so greatly depending on business class or first class or whatever, but in these classes, you will almost always have some kind of, I'm just gonna call it fancier seat situation. Not all of them lay down, not all of them have walls around them, not even all of them face forward. There are so many exceptions, but you will be somehow getting an upgraded seat experience. You will also have more overhead space just because there are less passengers in that area of the plane, and you're very often served a drink before the plane even leaves the gate. By the way, one of the videos I watched this week was a first class flight attendant giving tips about the best way to enjoy flying in first class, and she was saying, people, the time you have for the drink before we leave the gate is about 15 minutes, so take a look at the menu, know what it is you want, and don't order something extravagant because we got like 15 minutes for me to get it to you and for you to drink it and for me to collect the glass before we leave. Altogether, in business and first, you will almost always get some kind of like upgraded personalized service because there are more flight attendants to the passenger ratio. And the food and drinks that they will offer you in both classes is always upgraded compared to the back of the plane. Also, the food is usually served then in real dishes, like real plates and bowls made out of ceramic or whatever. The silverware is actual metal. The glasses that you drink from are actual glass and not like a styrofoam coffee cup, which is of course nicer than the back of the plane. If there is an entertainment system in the seat, you know, like a touchscreen to watch movies and play games on, usually it will be bigger than what's offered in the economy seats. And depending on the airline, and if it is a longer flight, a lot of times you'll get some kind of goodie bag or amenity kit that includes like a lip balm, a hand lotion, a toothbrush, things like that. Once you arrive, the business class and first class passengers are usually the first people allowed to leave the plane, and some airlines guarantee that your bags will be like the first bags that make it to the baggage belt. So that was a list of things that I could come up with that you will get basically in both business and first class. I'm sure I missed some, and if you want to, in a friendly way, chip in the comments and let me know what they are, go for it. And I'm gonna get to my list of things that are truly first class right after this commercial break. Did you get 1, What was it about? Write it in the comments below. By the way, elephant in the room, I know you've probably been wondering this whole entire video so far, but yes, we did get a new refrigerator. As I have mentioned many times in this video, there are so many exceptions and differences in what is offered for a first class ticket. I think if you're flying first class from like Minneapolis to Chicago, what you're gonna get is an empty seat next to you and maybe one more bag of peanuts. But there are some airlines that offer a really extravagant experience, and that is what I want to go into now. Some airlines, when you book a first class ticket, they will literally pick you up in a limousine at home or at your hotel and drive you to a separate entrance of the airport where you go to a separate lounge that is just for first class passengers of that airline. In those lounges, sometimes they have spas, sometimes they have chefs that will personally cook a meal for you there and sommeliers that will pair wines with it for you. And when it comes time to board the flight, there is a separate private hallway to the gate area. And on some airlines, they will even put you back in the limousine and literally drive you around the airport to the plane. Honestly, how would you feel about that? I would get such a bad imposter syndrome, getting out of this limousine next to the plane with my shiny green Wilson backpack that I got on sale for $49.99. That would almost make me uncomfortable to be in that situation, to have that level of personal attention. But I'm not saying I wouldn't like to try it if somebody wants to sponsor me to go on a first class flight like that. But really, there are some airlines that if you fly with them first class, from the moment you leave your home until the moment you actually get into your seat or suite in the plane, you won't even see anybody flying in that disgusting economy class in the plane with you. Isn't that crazy? The seat situation in first class also varies greatly depending on the airline and the stretch and all those things I've mentioned in this video, but some of the fanciest of these seats are literally like a little room in the airplane. You know, basically, have you ever seen the NCL studio cabins on the newer ships from NCL? Imagine being in one of those, but that is your seat for the flight. Some airlines also have showers in their first class area, but I have a big question about this. We all know, especially when you're flying international flights, that turbulence happens and then the plane starts shaking, the light goes on, and everybody is forced to sit down. But what do you do if you're in the shower? You know what I mean? Let's say you just got your hair shampooed and then everybody is called to go back to their seat. Do you have to get out of the shower immediately and then go sit down in a towel? How does it work? So in business class, they offer upgraded food, and from the information that I read, it seems like a business class meal usually would retail, or the retail value of it on the ground would be between maybe 30 or 40 US dollars. But in these higher level of first class tickets, it's said that the meal price can equal over 100 US dollars and include more exclusive ingredients and also beverages. When you land, you may again be whisked out of the airplane into a limousine and then driven to the private lounge where your bags will be waiting, and then driven onto your hotel or back home. That would be so nice. And of course, when you fly first class, you are going to be getting a ton of miles and a ton of status points. You're also going to be paying a ton more money. But this is also something interesting that I learned while reading all these articles, and that is a lot of airlines are bringing back an elevated first class experience because people who are so wealthy that they usually flew in private planes are starting to not want to fly private planes anymore just because it's so non-sustainable, but they still want a higher level of service. And that's why the airlines are starting to add these suites and super fancy experiences again to attract those people, which I am definitely not one of. So of course, there are exceptions to everything I have just said. There are some flights and airlines where if you book first class, all you're getting is a curtain behind you and an empty seat next to you. One thing that I noticed while preparing for this video is if you are enticed to spend like an extra $1,500 or however much it's going to be to upgrade to business class or first class, because you might think that you're going to be getting your own private suite with a lay down bed and a champagne fountain, and you might end up in one of those weird backwards facing seats looking at the passenger next to you who you've never met before. So if you're going to splurge, make sure you do a deep dive in the information on the airline's website to see what the airport offers, what the plane that you would be in offers, and you can find tons of videos about these things from other creators here on YouTube as well. And before I wrap this up, I want to share a list with you of airlines that do offer a higher class than business class. The US-based airlines would be like American, United, Alaska, and JetBlue, according to some article I read. That article also listed Delta, but I went to the Delta website and tried to book a couple different flights and find a class of ticket that was called first class, but on Delta, the highest class is always just called Delta 1. But I flew Delta 1 and that is not first class. So I don't know. The real big bangers that offer the limousines and the suites and the massages and everything, those are international airlines like Emirates, Singapore, Qatar, Cathay Pacific, and Etihad. From what I could tell, they offer a much fancier experience than what most of the US carriers offer, but of course there are exceptions. Maybe someday I will get there and be able to experience one of these limousine two-plane experiences. At the moment, I don't see it happening, but never say never. Thanks for spending this part of your Sunday with me, or whichever day it is you decided to watch this. Make sure you subscribe before you go, press that thumbs up, and I look forward to seeing you back here soon on the Very Unofficial Travel Guides. Bye-bye.